So our car runs now, which is cool, but it's not quite enough. We need the car to drive also. You could hear in the last video that it was misfiring and running kind of like crap. So my running theory for that is that the alternator isn't turning over because we don't have a power steering pump or res or any plumbing for that on, so the coil packs probably weren't getting enough voltage. So we're going to try and tackle that today. I've just come back from the wreckers. I've got a reservoir for our power steering pump just down there, and I've also got a clutch line, so we might even be able to get this thing moving under its own power. For now, I'm going to tackle trying to keep the thing cool by installing our thermos and our radiator, along with getting our alternator turning by putting the power steering pump on and plumbing that all up so we can run our drive belt.
One eternity later.
Okay, so quick update now. We have our power steering pump on with our reservoir. We have our drive belt tensioner in place. We have our AC delete bracket in place. I can't run the power steering lines just yet until the car's in the hoist. I have a couple of GK Tech fittings that I need to chuck into the rack, and then I have to make up AN lines to feed into it. It's going to be a bit interesting because the factory reservoir, obviously to feed back into it from the rack, is just a barbed rubber fitting, so I'm going to have to figure out something there. I've got the radiator in place now. We need to fit our thermo fans now, which is going to be fun. So I took the fans off the shroud just to test fit it to see, even if the fans are sitting right on the radiator, if it's going to work. And with these fans, which are just cheap Chinese ones, no is the answer. So this is getting pusher fans now. I'm not too cut about it. I guess if we don't run the shroud and the fans at the back, we get more access to the drive belt and the accessories on the front, which is kind of nice, but at the same time, it's just going to be a case of trial and error, I feel. Finding out if these fans are sufficient to keep it cool, which I very much doubt as pushers. And if they don't, we're just gonna have to fork out for some nice aftermarket ones, maybe some spells. I'll chuck these on the front. I'll modify my little rad hose for the top, and I'll get it all buttoned up. So I've got the upper and lower rad hoses on the car now. I've done little bits and pieces. I've got the thermo fans mounted on the front because there was just no way to get them on the back. Unfortunately, just too tight. One mild inconvenience I've run into is with the factory power steering res, because it's so bulky, it kind of gets in the way of the turbo intake. So I can't run what I already had made up because it just fails. So I'll quickly whip up a new one. Car's back up on a hoist now, so we've got a fair bit of work to do. We need to chuck our remote bleeder in here because we don't have the clearance for an extended one, so that's probably what I'm going to tackle first. And also, we're going to tackle our power steering line. So I've got some fittings from GK Tech. So with our factory reservoir, I need one line to go onto the barb fitting there and one line to come into our high pressure one. So our high pressure is going to go into this top one here, and this is our return to the res. I want to make a rubber line for this because it'll be like easy, but also I don't know how it's going to go heat wise. Maybe I just make up some heat shielding depending where it sits, but once I get further into it, I'll show you what we do. All right, so we've got everything plumbed up now. We've got all the coolant lines on the radiator. We have the high pressure and the return for the power steering reservoir, and we also have the clutch extended remote bleeder on it. So this part's actually pretty nerve-wracking for me, not because I'm worried about anything breaking, but I'm more worried about having to clean up shit because it leaks everywhere. So we'll go ahead and chuck all the fluids in the car now and see if it holds them all. Fingers crossed. Where is it leaking?
It's leaking from here, it's leaking from there.
Oh, motherfucker. All right, so we've just finished pressure testing the coolant system. We know it holds pressure now, which is cool. It's not springing up any new leaks. I did have to fill a couple of pinholes up on the top tank of the radiator last night, which was honestly a bit of a pain in the ass because I have zip tied these fans in. The radiator is no longer removable with those fans in place, so I kind of had to do it in the car, which sucked. But anyway, we also bled up the clutch last night. It kind of sucked to do, and we ended up having to like pull fluid through it with like a vacuum tool Ben has, because it was sitting on the bench dry for so long. I'm also quite suspicious if it is actually working properly because the pedal is surprisingly light. We won't know if that's working properly until the car's running. So now what we want to do is figure out if the power steering lines are leaking or not, and the only way to tell is by running the car and seeing if they leak. So that's what we're going to do now. I'll chuck a jump pack on the car, start her up, and hopefully it sounds and runs a bit better now that it's got the drive belt and the alternator turning, but we'll see what happens. Going through gears. Oh, that's mint. We're going ahead, we're bleeding the brakes. I've just done a quick bolt check underneath to make sure like the ball joints aren't going to fly out or anything like that, but we're bleeding up the brakes now in anticipation of moving it under its own power for the first time, which is exciting but also quite nerve-wracking. We'll bleed up the brakes and I guess we'll come back when we're ready to start moving. Yeah. I didn't wear one. So Ben's been a massive help on this car, and honestly I couldn't have done it without him, so I'm letting him take it for a maiden voyage, is that the word for it? Test drive, see how he likes it. Isn't it? well, I'd call that a pretty successful day. It drives. It's got a lot of balls. You can tell right off the bat that this thing makes a lot more torque than the RB did. It doesn't, you can take off really poorly and it will still just take off because it's got the torque. It doesn't really want to die. Obviously the tune's not like dialed or anything. It almost feels like it has too much like throttle response. Like you'd only press the pedal like 10% and it would start moving, bro. So maybe that's in the tune, not quite sure. Basically just have a lot of little things to button up now before it gets sent off to the tuner. Things like wastegate lines, I gotta chuck a boost controller in it because we're not gonna use the factory boost control. Probably gonna run an E-Boost 2 or a G-Force 3, but basically I'm just gonna see whatever pops up on Marketplace for less. Do need to get an alignment on this thing still, and it is really bouncy as well, probably because the motor's more far forward. I don't think the BARRAs are particularly much heavier than an RB somehow. I think though, because the motor's sitting way more far forward in the bay and higher up also, that the center of gravity is just shifted, and also it doesn't have a sway bar, so might have to get some new springs before we take it out on the track, or we'll just send it and see what happens. Next episode I think is going to be tuning this car. It's all just little small bits and pieces now, like routing vac lines here and there, maybe chucking different thermos, like shifting the intercooler so it sits straight, but I'm still relatively new to all the YouTube stuff, so I don't know how much or how little you guys actually want to see. So if you want to let me know just down in the comments, like what sort of form factor you like in these videos, if you like shorter ones, longer ones, if you want to see more or less, let me know because I'm still a bit clueless, hey. Yeah, all right, it's about that time of day now where we've got to pack everything up, put things away and get ready for the work week. So I'm gonna leave you guys here. Thanks for watching. I am in quite a good mood now. So yeah, gonna sleep well tonight. Adios, amigos.